The story of David's investment journey, a conversation with his girlfriend. The golden light of the autumn afternoon streamed through the window, casting long streaks across the wooden floor of the coffee shop. Clara sat across from David Cohen, her eyes bright and attentive, listening intently. She had this way of truly understanding people, and David always felt comfortable opening up to her. Today, he decided to share something a little different, his personal journey through the world of financial investing and the lessons he's learned along the way. David, as he glanced at his coffee cup, gathering his thoughts before speaking. Clara, when I first got into the stock market, I really didn't know much at all. I had a small amount of capital, about $10,000, and a belief that if I didn't start, I'd never change my financial future. That money felt huge to me at the time. Clara gave him an empathetic look, then asked, "So, how did you get started?" David, I allocated 40% of my capital into stocks. But at that point, my goal wasn't to make a lot of money right away. I just wanted to protect my funds, stay in the game, and learn as I went. I didn't expect huge returns initially. Actually, I failed a lot in the beginning, David said, his tone turning more serious. I got caught up in the market's fluctuations. There were times when I saw a stock rise quickly, and I couldn't resist jumping in, thinking I'd make a quick profit. But what I got back was disappointment. David looked into Clara's eyes and continued. One time I bought a stock, and right after, the market started to dip. At first, I thought it was just a small correction, but then the market kept falling. Watching my money shrink bit by bit felt terrible. It was like my heart was sinking. I didn't want to sell at a loss because doing so meant admitting I was wrong. But I knew that if I didn't, I'd lose everything. Clara frowned, sighing. But you cut your losses, right? I had to, David said, his voice heavy, and it really hurt. It wasn't just losing money, it was the emotional blow too. The worst part, though, was after I sold, the stock started going up again. I watched it rise, and the regret hit me even harder. Clara quietly took his hand, her eyes conveying understanding. You couldn't have changed that, right? No, David replied, sighing. At that moment, I didn't know what else to do. The feeling of regret and guilt is really hard to deal with. It's like being left behind by the market, like I missed an opportunity. That stung. Have you ever sold and then regretted it? Clara asked, her eyes full of curiosity. Many times, David chuckled lightly, shrugging. Every time I sold, the stock kept rising. I remember one time, I sold a stock for about a 15% profit. After selling, I told myself it was the right decision. But not long after, that stock shot up even higher. Clara sighed, then gently said, "So, what did you do to overcome those emotions?" "I had to train myself a lot," David said seriously. "It's hard not to let emotions drive you, but I realized that emotions are the biggest enemy in investing. To avoid getting swayed by temporary feelings, I had to always have a clear plan, a strategy that I stuck to, no matter what the market was doing. Slowly, I started learning how not to let regret or excitement influence my decisions." "So, what did you learn from all this?" Clara asked, her eyes full of concern. "I learned that investing isn't a get-rich-quick game. It's a long journey that requires patience and discipline. I stopped letting emotions control me. Now, whenever I make a decision, I always ask myself, is this based on my strategy or just my emotions? If it's emotions, I step back. So, how do you feel about investing now?" Clara asked, her eyes filled with understanding. "I don't feel regret or guilt anymore," David smiled. Investing still has its ups and downs, but I've learned to stick to my discipline and not let emotions take over. Each time I make a decision, I know that no matter what the outcome is, I've followed my strategy. Clara smiled gently. I really admire you, and I know you'll continue to succeed on this journey. Of course, David smiled back. But the important thing is to never give up and to learn from each failure. She nodded. I believe in you, and I'll learn from you too. Looking at Clara, David began to feel a shift in how he viewed investing. You know, over the last few years, I've learned a lot of lessons, and now I feel ready for a new strategy. I'm starting to realize that this first phase was just the foundation, and I'm not going to stop here. Clara looked at him, smiling. So, what's next? David nodded, his eyes lighting up. 1. What you need to prepare before you start investing. Basic knowledge. David emphasizes that investing isn't a game of chance. Before you put any money into an investment, you need to understand the market, the financial tools available, and how they work. Reading books, taking online courses, and following financial experts are all important steps to building strong foundational knowledge. A clear investment strategy. You need a specific plan. David shares that creating a detailed roadmap for how much money to invest, where to allocate funds for safe returns, and setting long-term financial goals is crucial. Investing shouldn't be impulsive. It needs careful consideration. Risk management fund. One thing David stresses is setting aside a small portion of your capital, about 10%, for a risk management fund. This money is there to protect you in case of unforeseen market fluctuations or sudden economic shifts. 2. Things to avoid when investing. Letting emotions control your decisions. David talks about how he's learned the hard way that letting emotions like fear during market dips or greed when stocks rise too fast can lead to bad decisions. It's essential to stay calm and not let emotions drive your actions. Following the crowd or rumors. One big mistake David made was investing based on rumors or crowd trends. He realized that the market is always changing, and just because everyone else is buying something doesn't mean it's the right decision for you. Avoid getting swept up by the crowd. Do your own research and make informed choices. Expecting unrealistic profits. David shared how in the early years he expected to make quick profits. However, he learned that investing is a long-term process, not a fast track to wealth. You need to mentally prepare for ups and downs and be ready to learn from each failure. 3. Building discipline in investing. Set clear limits. One of the key lessons David learned was setting clear profit and loss limits before making a trade. For example, he would sell a stock if it hit a 10% profit, or cut his losses if it dropped 5%. Discipline in cutting losses and locking in profits is crucial to protecting your capital and avoiding emotional traps. Stick to your strategy. To build discipline, you need to stick to your strategy and not change it based on short-term gains or setbacks. David learned that being patient and sticking to your plan is critical in the long run. Be patient and learn from failure. David emphasizes that investing is a long-term journey, and success won't come without patience. The first failures are the most valuable lessons. Not giving up after a few setbacks is one of the key factors in building discipline and moving toward success. David's story is a realistic portrayal of the investment journey. His experiences offer valuable lessons for anyone new to investing. To start, you need to prepare with the right knowledge, a clear strategy, and a risk management fund. Avoid letting emotions drive your decisions, following the crowd, or expecting quick profits. Finally, building discipline is the key to long-term success in financial investing. Remember, investing is a long-term journey, and only those who are patient and have a solid strategy will reap the rewards over time.